Hi, I'm Miranda, and this is my husband, Nick.
Wait.
Hello. Welcome to Ranting. This is Rants on the Rocks episode. Well, it's episode 3 of Rants on the Rocks, but episode 5 overall.
Yep.
Yay. And today we are going through The Butcher Game by Alaina Urquhart.
And this is the sequel.
This is the sequel to The Butcher and the Wren.
So if you listened to last week's, this is just a continuation.
Yeah. Really. But this is it for right now, as far as this series goes.
Okay.
This book, well, like I said, was written by Alaina Urquhart. Again, co-host of the chart-topping podcast, Morbid, a true crime podcast. It was copywritten by Perimortem LLC and published by Zando New York in 2024. And like we said, it is the sequel to The Butcher and the Wren, which was a New York Times best-selling book. Yeah.
Motherfucking story time.
Motherfucking story time.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So.
This is going to get crazy, isn't it?
Okay. So before we begin, spoiler alert and trigger warning. I feel like I probably should have done a trigger warning last time. Yeah, because it was kind of graphic. I didn't think about it until later.
Don't be a bitch.
Well,
okay.
Just so everybody knows.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, because I do go through the whole book, including the ending. And then the trigger warning, because it is a graphic book. It's about murder. It's a butcher game.
It's murder.
Yeah, like, so, you know, I toned it down compared to like what's in the book for the most part, obviously.
Really?
Because it's like, you know, she uses like the medical terminology and like sometimes gets really detailed with it and everything.
Yeah, right.
But still probably not suitable for children, young children.
Absolutely not. This is not for your kids.
I don't think much of anything I
Even
say
when
is
I posted
suitable for
like
your
the
children.
like the little teaser on the socials.
That's
a
really
mature audience only.
That's a good
like,
call.
Yeah, because
yeah. Don't fuck around and listen to this one, folks. All right.
Don't listen to it at work. That's for damn sure.
Well, wear headphones.
Headphones, yeah.
You'll be fine. It's all right.
That's true.
All right.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So if you haven't read the first book, or if you haven't listened to episode 2 of Rants on the Rocks, pause here. Go do that first and come back. This book is nuts, and the writing is so beautifully descriptive that I have to recommend everyone, as always, to go read it for yourself. And then also, as always, I will be leaving out a lot, details that I can without taking away from the story. So if you're craving all those delicious little details, The Butcher Game by Alaina Urquhart is available on digital and audio platforms, as well as a hardcover physical book. The paperback is not out yet. I don't know when it will be. But this, I think this just came out, so I think it's probably still going to be a bit before
when we
the
were
paperback
at,
does come back.
what is it, Barnes & Noble, this was at, the front of the store.
Yeah,
this
that
is,
too.
a big book.
Yeah. I had to ask them where it was, because I went back to, the mystery thriller section, and I couldn't find it,
and it was
anywhere.
It was on their main
it was
display.
up in the front, in, the big display up at the front.
I feel like that's a good problem to have as an author.
Yeah, well, also, I do want to say,
I
got the last one.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So that's my little brag about it. But no, I was really, really happy that I was able to find it. I was I was really close to being sad, honestly, because I was circling those stacks. I could not find it anywhere.
I'm glad they had it.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out well.
Good.
So, just recap real quick. You remember all the characters and everything? You remember who everybody is?
For the most part, yeah.
Just remember. Well, 2 things that I learned. I do have to correct myself from last week.
Okay.
The name Dr. Wren Muller is what it is. I said Mueller last week.
Okay.
It's Dr. Wren Muller.
Got it. Okay.
I was able to check this out on Libby, the audio book. So I fast forwarded to where I could hear their names.
Yeah.
So it's Dr. Wren Muller and then Detective John LaRue. It is LaRue.
LaRue.
All the times I kept trying to say LaRue and then corrected it to LaRue. It is LaRue.
LaRue. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
learned that.
There you go.
Next time I will just listen to that part in the audiobook from the jump or ask Google. I don't
That's fine.
know, whatever. Who cares? So then that's the two detectives that are working together.
Yep.
And then you remember the Bayou Butcher named Jeremy?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you remember his friend Philip Trudeau, that they had that his name had been left on the library card.
Yes.
At the murder. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this book picks up roughly 2 weeks after Jeremy Rose, aka the Bayou Butcher, evaded police capture after leaving a trail of dead bodies behind him.
Okay. Did it say how he got out? Was there a tunnel or?
No, it didn't say there was like
okay.
a tunnel or anything. He just like climbed out of the swamp like a fucking monster.
Oh, okay. All right.
A little shit monster that he is. So the prologue is in Philip Trudeau's point of view. Mm-hmm. He's at home watching a news broadcast on the television, and they're announcing that authorities are on the hunt for Jeremy in neighboring states.
Okay.
And recall, this takes place in Louisiana.
Yep.
So apparently Jeremy had actually been killing for years in Louisiana. Apparently I missed that in the first book. My bad. So now that there's a name to place for the Bayou Butcher.
Well, no, not really, because we found out that he got obsessed with killing when he was 7. And then he created this game, and he calls it the Guests.
Yeah.
So he's clearly been doing this for a long
I just thought
time.
that there had been like a gap in there between when he had lost Emily and when he came after her again. Like that was, I guess, my initial understanding of it.
I figured he kept doing it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, now like when I thought back on it, I was like, well, duh, why would he have like a 7-year sleeping period?
Yep.
So that,
Okay.
Anyway, so now that there's a name in place for the Bayou Butcher, Philip is recalling how he always wondered if it was Jeremy committing all of those murders. He never had any concrete proof or anything that he could take to the police other than like a personal recognition of how many places, many of the places where the bodies were found. And then, of course, he's also the only one who knows just how depraved Jeremy truly is, as he saw it for himself when they were just teenagers. And there's a brief flashback to the phone conversation that he had with Detective John LaRue, and he felt that Detective LaRue was a bit abrasive, although he feels that he was being cooperative and answering all of his questions. And he even offered his employer's contact information for the time during the murders. It turns out that Philip is a pastor at Covenant of Grace Church.
Okay.
So after, he had been talking to LaRue and he's reminiscing about all this stuff, he knows that there's only one person who would have used his library card with his name on it in a series of murders. And he knew that the message was meant to be received by him from Jeremy Rose.
Okay.
So
they were childhood friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So chapter 1 opens in Ren's perspective. She's having a horrific dream where she's trying to escape Jeremy yet again. She awakes with a scream, and her husband Richard is there by her side to calm and center her. He reminds her that she's at home and she's safe. She immediately begins to gain perspective of her surroundings and calm down. We learn that it's been 2 weeks since Jeremy evaded the police, and she's been placed on an open-ended medical leave since then. And that's a medical leave from work. Recall, she works for the medical examiner's office.
Yep.
And the only person that she's seen during this time has been her husband, Richard. But other than him, it's just been her longtime therapist, Dr. Roy. So she hasn't been to work at all, hasn't been
no
out.
outside contact.
Yeah, nothing.
Wow.
She's just only.
How long's it been again?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. And
I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah. And Detective John LaRue had also taken some time off of work to start recovering on his injury. If you recall, for him, that he had been shot in the leg by Jeremy's crossbow.
Yep. Steel tip too.
Yeah, but now he's back to work, and I mean, he's got his leg in a boot. but he's been sending Ren daily updates about their investigation.
Okay.
And he understands how difficult it is for her to just be on leave. So everybody has been telling her that she needs to heal, but she knows that she can't. So that's where, you know, like she points out that it's nice that he's like keeping her updated on what's going on.
Did it say anything about like a security detail or anything? That like nothing. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's not mentioned, it's not implied or anything like that. So I'm assuming no.
Okay. This dude was in your house. Okay.
I would fucking move.
Jesus,
like something. I don't know.
That's wild.
I don't even know what I would do.
I mean, but at the same time, she changed her name, and he still found her.
Exactly.
So even if
like,
you do move,
like
you need a security detail.
Something. But anyway, she knows that she'll never truly be able to heal until they catch Jeremy and end all of this for good. She says, quote, "No one wants to consider that there's no moving forward without a conclusion."
Yeah.
Yep. So now over to Jeremy's perspective. In his perspective, it's been 2 weeks since he left Louisiana. He's now in West Virginia, so they're in the same timeline this time. There's not like
whose perspective is this?
This is Jeremy's.
Jeremy. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So, and that's something that we know up front. That's not a spoiler. Like I made sure, like I said before, I put like a note in highlighted yellow to see if like I could say that. I made sure, obviously, read through the whole book.
Why would that be a spoiler?
Because last time the timelines seemed to like overlap, but for like the first part, his perspective was in the past, and hers was in the present. Okay, so that's why I wanted to make a point to say that this time they're both in the same timeline. Okay, so when I'm saying like, oh, it's been this many days or it's the next day, it's the same.
That's the entirety of the book.
Yeah, it's like it's this. It follows the same timeline.
Okay.
If anything, like if the days do overlap, I guess it's only like his perspective will be in the morning and hers will be in the evening.
Right.
Or,
Okay.
Something like
it's
that.
Not like 7 years apart.
Yeah, exactly. So just wanted to clear that up.
Okay.
So Jeremy's perspective, it's been 2 weeks since he left Louisiana. He's now in West Virginia. He's out in the middle of the woods somewhere, and he's currently digging into a hiding spot that he had prepared long before now as a contingency. After digging for a bit, he pulls a blue bucket out of the hole and begins collecting its contents. There's a length of piano wire, 2 different guns and extra bullets, a shorter curved knife, a medical scalpel, 3 boxes of dark hair dye, a bunch of zip ties, and $10,000 in cash from his mother's life insurance payout.
Okay. In a blue bucket.
Yeah, it was buried in a bucket in the woods.
Okay.
But like I said, he pre-planned all of these items, so he has room to carry everything because he's on foot. He has room to carry everything, and he's already prepared to take on that extra weight. Like, this was all a part of the plan. Alrighty, so there's a bit of a break in time during the day, and now he's at a diner with freshly dyed dark hair. He's naturally blonde.
Okay.
While he's eating his meal, Jeremy notices a working man with dark hair and features similar to his own, and Jeremy decides that's who his target will be. He puts on a fake sob story, talking loudly to nobody on his phone while he walks past that man, and he says, "I swear I'm going to find a way to make it home to you, darling. You won't have this baby alone."
Con artist.
Outside the diner, he fakes a casual run-in with the same man in the parking lot. The man ends up offering him a ride after Jeremy lies and says that his car broke down on the highway, and he only lives about 10 miles off the highway, like further up.
Okay.
And Jeremy accepts the man's offer, and when they're in the truck, the man introduces himself as Tom. Jeremy lies and introduces himself as David. As they're in the truck, driving for a minute, Jeremy casually asks the man if he often picks up hitchhikers. Tom says, "Not often. I guess every now and then I'll help someone out." Why? Quote, Jeremy shrugs, scanning the road in front of them. "I guess I was just wondering when it stopped being safe to give someone a ride."
Jesus. Okay.
End quote.
Dominus.
Yep. And Tom is clearly uncomfortable with the topic that Jeremy has broached. He calmly asks Jeremy if he's implying that he's not safe to be giving a ride to. Jeremy elaborates and tries to play it off by referring back to the 50s and the 60s when people regularly hitchhiked. And, back then they had great experiences. He explains that he's trying to evaluate when the world strayed from that type of honesty and trustworthiness between strangers. Tom takes the bait and tells Jeremy that it all started in the 70s. That's when society lost their way. They lost their way to Christ. And before that, everyone knew their place and stayed in their place. And so that's why things worked out so well. He goes on to say, sure, people were committing sins, but they did it behind closed doors. Definitely not out in the open like everyone does now. And he says, people used to have respect for one another. Jeremy agrees, but then he goes on to say, even if Jesus were out offering rides to hitchhikers, they'd probably find his head detached from his body somewhere.
Jesus.
An obviously religious man, this disturbs Tom. God. And again, he says to Jeremy, you never answered my question if you were safe to be driving. But Jeremy says, no, I'm not a weirdo. I just think it's important to consider the safety issues with picking up hitchhikers. And when Tom points out that he's acting like a weird hitchhiker, Jeremy casually reminds him that he's not a hitchhiker. He didn't even ask for a ride. Tom offered one to him. There's a heavy moment of silence while Tom is clearly contemplating what Jeremy just said. Then he abruptly says, where is your place, man? Obviously more than ready to get this fucking weirdo out of his truck.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Jeremy tells them to just keep going forward a bit and then take a left up ahead. As they're driving, the houses get further and further apart. And Jeremy's rehearsing his plan in his head. He knows that he's only got one shot and one shot only for this to work. Jeremy directs Tom toward a lone house on a hill with a singular light on the second floor. Tom looks at the house suspiciously, but Jeremy moves ahead as if he's getting out of the truck when he reaches his hand over in a motion to shake Tom's hand. And he says, listen, I appreciate the ride. Tom is obviously hesitant to have physical contact with David, as he knows Jeremy. But after Jeremy continues to stare at him, Tom reluctantly reaches his hand over to shake goodbye. Jeremy gives Tom a strong handshake goodbye, but then he pulls Tom's body towards his own over the center console, catching him off guard. Tom fights back, and they have a struggle back and forth in the truck, with Tom securing a tight grip on Jeremy's throat, while Jeremy pulls a knife from his pant leg and stabs Tom in the underside of his arm.
Oof.
Before Tom can prevent it, Jeremy then stabs his knife directly into his heart again and again as Tom struggles against him.
Jeez.
Before long, Tom loses the fight against Jeremy, and he succumbs to his wounds as blood pours out of his body, and he slumps forward towards the dashboard of the vehicle. Jeremy notes how he knows for sure that Tom is dead because his open left eyeball is squelched by the volume knob as he leans slumped over on the dashboard.
Oof, that's gnarly.
Jeremy moves Tom's body from the driver's seat to the cab of the truck. Then he drives him down a dark gravel road to the middle of nowhere. He drives until he finds himself surrounded by trees, and he decides this is the perfect place, so he sets out on a search. He finds a place near a stream with a crevice between a large boulder and several other rocks. After determining it's the perfect place, Jeremy heads back to his truck to retrieve Tom's body. He then drags Tom back to the crevice, where he then shoves his body down head first. Tom doesn't fully fit at first, but after Jeremy shoves Tom's body down and breaks his foot to accommodate the given space, Jeremy's able to disguise the burial place with another large rock. As he's hiding Tom's body, Jeremy vaguely reflects on the only other time he left a body hidden, and she's still hidden to this day.
Jeez.
After disposing of the body, Jeremy discovers a seemingly dilapidated shack in the West Virginia woods. It's short. So short that Jeremy has to crawl through it. It's described as being tall enough for a child to stand in. There are shelves lining the perimeter of the shack, topped with dozens of dirty, old, kind of foggy jars.
What?
And there are various dead bugs and animal bones, even some parts, like paws.
It's like a building, right?
It's like a little shack, like a little wooden shack.
Okay.
And there are animal skins tacked to the wooden walls, accompanied by swarms of flies. As he continues exploring, Jeremy discovers a fabric bundle that's been pulled together at the top and shoved on a shelf in the corner of the shack. He can't help himself. It smells horrid, and it's covered in dark stains consisting of various shades of brown, dark red, and yellow.
It's a head.
He has to look inside.
That is a head.
The fabric is hard and crunches a bit in his hands as he pulls the gathered top apart to reveal its contents. Immediately, he sees a human finger, then several strips of flesh, as well as 3 eyeballs among a dark cluster of hair, blood, and even more flesh. The bag is hard, but its contents are fresh enough for Jeremy to determine that it was packed recently, and he's certain whoever did it will be back soon. He's only slightly alarmed, so he takes another minute to admire the contents of the bundle, and he imagines the type of person who would inhabit this shack, as well as their habits and their process of mutilation. Then he gently closes the bundle and tucks it back into place on the shelf, and he makes his way back out of the shack without leaving a trace of his presence.
Okay.
He just calmly walks back to Tom's truck, pulls bleach wipes out of his bag, and he begins cleaning the interior of the vehicle.
So there's just random body parts in the bag?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So after a therapy appointment with Dr. Roy, Ren receives a call from Detective LaRue, and he's requesting that she accompany him back to Jeremy Rose's property one last time for one final sweep. After plenty of procrastination, Ren heads back to the property to meet LaRue.
This is the first time she's out of the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he basically is like, I think it's time. You gotta
2 weeks, yeah.
You gotta do something. I was like, I know that you're going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's time.
Yeah. It is time.
Yeah. So while they're walking through the house again, she walks up to Jeremy's once impressive plant collection, and she can't help but note and search for the putrid smell coming from it. LaRue walks up to her and casually mentions that what she smells is root rot, and Jeremy must have overwatered the plants on purpose before he left. There's only one plant, a Boston fern, that looks almost entirely unaffected. LaRue tells Ren that Boston ferns thrive in humid environments, which is what the other plants have provided. Then he cautiously suggests that Ren should take it for herself. And of course, she's like,
what?
The fuck? Yeah.
Why would you take anything from
She's
this guy's
like,
house?
no, I'm not going to do that. But he's like, hang on a second. Just think of the symbolism here. He tried to kill both of you and he couldn't. You both survived and you've thrived in spite of him. And, speaking of Jeremy. Mm-hmm. She hesitates, so she's like, fine, whatever. I'll take the damn plant. Let's just finish what we're doing.
I don't like that.
So they get back to the investigation on the property, and they walk into a lounge area of the home. It's designed as if it's an old movie set with the velvet curtains and large satin and velvet pillowed love seat, as well as a large curio cabinet. So like a display cabinet.
Okay.
Okay.
Like a credenza kind of thing?
Like a...
Is that the big...
The credenza is like what we have in our bedroom.
Oh, no, never
like,
mind. Okay.
Like a big display cabinet.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Immediately, LaRue moves to the cabinet to begin inspecting it, and unfortunately, he quickly brings Ren over to see what's inside. As soon as she looks in the cabinet, Ren sees several human finger bones, and beneath them are various clusters of hair held individually together by ribbon. There are clusters of brown, blonde, red.
Jeez.
As her eyes continue scanning the cabinet, they land on an antique porcelain bowl filled with rings and necklaces.
Oh, no.
All women's jewelry.
Oh, it's trophies, right? Yeah.
Yep. So, you know how how I mentioned earlier that Jeremy had actually been killing for years. Is something that I missed in the last one. But one thing that I had purposely left out in the last book, which in my defense, I didn't realize it was going to come back around. So let this be a lesson to all of you. Go read the book. Anyway, so the one thing that I had purposely left out in the first book was that when Ren, as Emily, had escaped Jeremy, it was LaRue's father who was one of the detectives working on her case.
Okay.
So LaRue's father had been a detective.
Now they're partners, right?
No, his dad is no longer like on the force, I guess. But his dad was one of the people working the case. And so that's how like he had been familiar with the girl that had escaped years before when she brought that up to him.
Yep.
So I just have to bring that up now because they bring it up later.
Okay.
So, yeah, my bad, but also read the book. I don't know. So now that they're seeing all of this women's jewelry, these trophies that Jeremy has kept, LaRue tells Ren that his dad always had a suspicion that there were more victims, or that there had been like victims that they had found in seemingly unrelated ways.
Okay.
That his dad had always kind of like suspected that maybe it was related.
Okay.
And so after they're done looking in the cabinet, she asks LaRue to walk out to the back of the property with her. Now, recall this is where like Jeremy had attacked them when they were there last time.
Yeah.
So LaRue's like,
sketchy about it.
I don't know if I want to do that, but like, okay.
He's not even in the state anymore, but
but he's like, fine, just I guess like as long as you're not back there by yourself.
Right.
You know? So they walk out there together. But while they're back there, Ren looks up to see one of the loudspeakers, and she's immediately transported to like a PTSD flashback of the night when she was running through the swamp trying to get away from Jeremy.
Yeah.
And she's consumed by these loud sounds of the cicadas. She's almost sure she can feel the bugs crawling on her and a snake slithering over her foot. Wow. And then suddenly she feels hands just clamp down on both of her shoulders. And she turns around quickly, ready to swing, only to see LaRue with a panicked face looking at her, saying like, it's me, it's John. And so she's immediately like brought back to reality and, you know, just kind of orients herself and everything. And as quickly as they can, they head back to the car. And she just tells LaRue, like, I'm done. That was enough for me. I never want to come back to this property again.
Yeah.
And so they leave.
I mean, that's an active crime scene.
Yeah, but that's, they're there for the investigation. That's why it's like one final sweep, like before we close down the crime scene or whatever. I don't fucking know.
And take a plan home.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. Anyway, so after driving 9 hours north, we're now in Jeremy's perspective.
Okay.
He hides Tom's truck in the woods, assuming that he'll be using it again later on. And now he's on foot, walking past houses lining Lake Garfield in Berkshire County, Massachusetts.
Jeez.
It's dark, so he can move about fairly easily, but he still makes sure to duck out of the way of any like motion lights that he spots.
Okay.
As he's walking, he recounts the time in his youth when he'd come to Massachusetts to spend the summers with his best friend, Philip. And he reminisces to himself how Philip's family was so loud and boisterous, full of fun and love, and they spent time outdoors together, and not only to hunt like Jeremy did with his own father.
That's LaRue, right? Philip, is that?
Trudeau.
Trudeau. Okay,
Yeah, Trudeau.
Yeah.
So as he's reminiscing internally, Jeremy walks up to an older, not quite abandoned looking home. It's clearly cared for enough that it's not dilapidated, but it's been left alone long enough that the grass is overgrown.
Okay.
So he makes his way around the outside of the house, scanning the perimeter and, you know, just kind of trying to scope it out a little bit.
Summer home, maybe?
Yeah, before he makes his way in through the back sliding glass door. And the decor is questionable, but the interior is clean and tidy. Someone obviously cares for the home while they're there, but it's evident that it's solely a vacation home and not a primary residence.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So Jeremy plans on making it his own for the time being. And it's a great place to stay for a while, but really it's the excitement of knowing that the rightful owners will feel such immense invasion after realizing that he had been there that really draws Jeremy in.
Jeez.
So the following night, he spends the night there. Mm-hmm. The following night, Jeremy hikes up to the Titus Mansion ruins. They're famous in the Berkshires, he learned. He walks around the estate grounds, taking note of how few people he's seen in a while that he's been there. It's been like a couple hours. And as the sun is beginning to set, Jeremy sees a couple in their 20s, a man and a woman taking several photos of each other, trying to use up as much of the remaining sunlight as they possibly can.
Okay.
Jeremy slinks down behind the remains of an old grand fireplace, quietly readying his small pistol crossbow that he pulled from his bag, and he listens closely to the couple talking. The woman, Taylor, is telling the man, Craig, that they should get going since it's getting dark and they still have to hike back to the car. Craig dismisses her and instead tells her to take just a couple more pictures of him over by a graffitied heart. She quickly takes the photos and she's like, there, can we go now? Mm-hmm. So as they turn to hike back, they discover that both pathways to their car are darkened, and they're going to have a hell of a time making their way back.
Jeez.
So Craig teases Taylor playfully while reassuring her that they're going to be fine. And he pulls her in close, but then suddenly Jeremy sees them both flinch and hurriedly start scanning their surroundings. Taylor says, what the fuck was that? And Craig says, I don't know, probably a bat or something. Let's just go. And he puts his arm around her shoulder, kisses her on the head, and he jokingly says, don't worry, I'll protect you, while flexing his other arm. And just as he flexes, a spray of blood splashes all over his face and into his mouth.
Oh, no.
Craig reflexively pulls away from Taylor, only to see her drop to the ground with blood sputtering out of her throat where she's been impaled by a medium-sized crossbow bolt.
Oh.
Craig kneels beside her body, grasping at her, unsure of what to do besides scream for help. He holds her body while she chokes on blood and gasps for air until finally the sounds stop and her body goes limp.
Jesus.
Craig just places her gently on the ground and then he takes off into the woods, surprising Jeremy, who thought he would beeline for the open field. And not one to miss out on the hunt, Jeremy stealthily follows behind Craig. He gains on Craig quickly, but then he slows down to drag out the fun and watch his prey scramble through the darkness. Jeremy watches as Craig continues running before abruptly tripping and flying over a log lying on the ground. His face smashes and drags through the dirt, causing his cheek to cut open. But he gets up and continues running. Unfortunately for him, though, Jeremy's got his crossbow ready. And before Craig can make it far, he's shot in the ankle with a crossbow bolt. Craig falls and screams, but he continues to fight like hell. He pulls himself back up and half runs, half drags himself as fast as he can deeper into the forest. Jeremy slowly follows, watching him through his night vision glasses, relishing, yes, it says glasses.
Night vision glasses. That's so
relishing in the fear displayed on the victim's face. Jeremy begins taunting him after Craig calls out, asking who's there and why they're doing this. Jeremy sneaks up behind Craig and he gets his knife out, ready to slash it through his throat. But much to his surprise, Craig still has a lot of strength left and he fights back with all he's got.
Fuck him up.
Right. The men struggle against each other before Jeremy finally reaches down, picks up a big rock, and smashes it into Craig's skull.
Damn.
Causing him to drop to the forest floor, unable to focus on or react to his surroundings. Jeremy sits on his knees, catching his breath. And then he reaches over to Craig, placing one hand on his forehead, and then Jeremy uses his other hand to slide the blade across Craig's throat, so deep that he hits bone.
Jesus Christ, that's gnarly.
He takes a beat now, listening for the death rattle, before he removes the crossbow bolt from Craig's ankle and walking away from his body, leaving him behind in the underbrush. Jeremy walks over to Taylor and removes the crossbow bolt from her neck. Then he pulls out his medical scalpel and begins carving into her skin. When he's finished, he splays that arm out beside her, displaying his work. And then he heads back down the hiking path to his stolen truck.
Does it say what he carved?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. But he only carved it into her, not him, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Back to Ren. Now, Ren is back home, and it's been hours since she left Jeremy's property. She's been racking her brain trying to piece together anything that she possibly can to try to, like, figure out where to even begin to trace him. And suddenly, she recalls the name Philip Trudeau, and she begins doing a Google search to see what she can dig up on him. In her search, Ren learns that Philip is a pastor in the area known as the Berkshires. She finds his social media profile, where he has a display photo of himself, his wife, and their young son. But further down on the profile, his marital status is listed as single, and the status change was noted as having occurred just a couple months prior. So naturally, Ren starts taking a look at his ex-wife's profile, whose name we learn is Catherine. There are no clear posts detailing like anything about their split, but there are some cryptic posts and poetry on her timeline, so Ren is able to determine that the split was kind of nasty. Ren then decides that she's just going to move on from the ex-wife, and she clicks back to Phil's page and then to the church's social media page. She's looking at the photos, seeing how devoted Philip is to his faith and his community, and she's wondering how he could have ever been friends with somebody like Jeremy. But after all, they clearly aren't close anymore, so maybe there's a reason why.
Theoretically.
Yeah. She messages LaRue and basically just asks him if he thinks that she's crazy for thinking that Jeremy's still alive and that he's like out there somewhere plotting. Mm-hmm. And she mentions how the story about the Bayou Butcher and all the murders is already almost out of the news cycle. And she's afraid that everyone's just going to move on and forget about it, right, while like she continues to be terrorized by him. Like she's, she's on this medical leave from work. She's having nightmares about this guy.
He was in your house.
Yeah. And she's like, and the world is just fucking going to continue to move on. Like I can't live like that.
Right.
And,
there's a nationwide manhunt going on though too right now, I thought.
I mean, it's announced states. On the,
They're nowhere near where he actually is, but.
Yeah, but they're she's noting how they're not reporting about it as much anymore. So even if there's still an investigation, it's falling out of the news cycle, which means people are going to start to forget about it. Okay. So she's, worried about this stuff and messaging LaRue, and he reassures her that they are going to catch him. And she's, basically just trying to tell herself that, okay, I need to have faith in my team or in, our local team that's working on the investigation. And I'm not in this by myself. So she's trying to just keep working through it.
Yeah.
So fast forward through the remainder of the day, and it's now in the middle of the night, and Ren is getting a phone call. It is Corinne Matthews from the Salem Police Department in Massachusetts.
Oh. How the hell did you make that? Okay.
Well, they had gone to medical school together and kept in touch over the years, her and Corinne. So, getting a phone call from her isn't out of the norm. So she's not, alarmed by this phone call. But
it's a wild coincidence, though, that he also went to Massachusetts. Anyways.
Yes. But Corinne tells Ren that they have an attempted homicide, and she's afraid that it might be a victim of the Bayou Butcher. And Corinne explains that she's especially concerned because this victim was dropped outside of a New Orleans-themed bakery. It's the only one like that in the area. Corinne goes on to say that the victim has evidence of prolonged torture in the form of ligature strangulation around the neck. She acknowledges that it might be a long shot, but it might just be what they're looking for too. So she urges Ren to head to Massachusetts to see and hopefully speak with the victim if she makes it through. Ren hangs up the phone and she and Richard begin debating whether or not she should go. She's explaining to him how she feels obligated to go and she feels like she has to be part of ending all of this in order to truly feel any closure. And then she reveals to him that when she was Emily, Cal was actually almost more than her lab partner.
Whoa.
Ren continues telling him about how they had been lab partners for months and had begun flirting. She felt like Cal was infatuated with her.
Oh, God.
And they could just talk by themselves for forever, and it felt natural. And then when they were at a celebration after midterms, they were off in a dark corner by themselves, and he gently tucked her hair behind her ear and kissed her. And while he did, he gently held the back of her neck. A move at the time, it made her swoon, but now she realizes that it was only a small move of possession.
Jeez.
And so she's like crying to Richard and just horrified and embarrassed about this, that, you know, she had begun falling for a man who turned out to be a monster.
Yeah. Fucking devil.
Richard, like the good man he is, comforts her and he's like, you were attracted to the person that he was pretending to be.
Yeah.
Like he, you know, she reminds him, he reminds her that Jeremy is obviously like somewhat of an actor and behaves however he needs to and says whatever he needs to.
Not even somewhat. He's like a phenomenal con artist.
Literally does
actor.
whatever he needs to do to get whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And so like, just don't blame yourself, essentially.
Right.
Like, that's just what he does.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she thanks him and, you know, for being there for her and everything. And he's like, this is a good step towards your healing, as much as, you know, you don't want to focus on that. You just want to get back to work.
Right.
But so they go to bed, and then the next morning they head to the airport together to go to.
Oh, they're both going.
They're going together.
Okay, good call.
Yep, to go to Salem, Massachusetts to see Corinne.
Okay.
So now it's also the next morning for Jeremy. And as he moves through his nefariously acquired home, remember he broke into that vacation home, he ponders whether Ren is catching up to him yet. And then he quickly turns his attention to his surroundings and decides he's going to start making some bigger moves, and he knows just where to begin. So now the sun is setting by the time that Jeremy makes it to Great Barrington Fairgrounds. It's crumbling as it's been abandoned for years, and Jeremy moves past the no trespassing sign and heads towards the grandstand. Once inside, he climbs to the second floor and he takes in his surroundings. The floor is littered with stray ancient papers and dead leaves, accompanied by millions of little dust particles that fly into the air when Jeremy tosses down his bag. He pulls 2 items from his bag and he hides them in the corner under some debris. And then he puts his bag on his back and he heads back down the stairs out to the rest of the fairgrounds.
What were the items?
It's decided that this is where he's going to bring his next victim. It's been hours now, and it's almost midnight. Jeremy is walking down Railroad Street in Great Barrington, carrying 24 all-white southern magnolias. They hold a sweet citrus scent that Jeremy breathes in deeply, and he recalls how his Louisiana home is surrounded by magnolia trees, and how they're one of the last to succumb to the cold fall temperatures. Then he begins to question if that's why Ren chose them for her wedding bouquet, for their long-lasting beauty. And he makes his way down Railroad Street, strategically dropping the flowers as he goes.
Okay. This guy's fucking nuts.
Y'all?
But it never said what the 2 items were in the corner?
Nope.
Okay.
Not just yet. Pause.
Okay. Oh, God. It's okay. So we don't know the items in the corner. We don't know what he engraved in the girl's arm. Those bodies haven't been discovered yet. Mm-mm. They're right outside of his home. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of shit going on.
Well, they're not right outside of his home.
I thought they were pretty close to the house.
They were on the estate grounds.
Oh, okay.
He hiked back to the house.
It's still generally pretty close, though.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yes. But now he's in Great Barrington.
Yep, right.
In Berkshire County, Massachusetts.
Okay.
I don't know if I said that already, but I say it at some point.
I'm pretty sure
I haven't. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, now when Ren and Richard arrive in Massachusetts, they immediately head for Salem Hospital to meet Corinne. On the way there, Ren receives a call from Detective LaRue. He informs her that there are 2 more bodies in another part of the state that they're almost certain were left by Jeremy. The victims are...
He's leaving a trail.
The victims are a man and a woman, and they're located in a town called Tyringham in western Massachusetts. And they were found in the woods with crossbow wounds. LaRue informs her that he's going to be heading up there to meet her the following day. So she and Richard begin making plans to find a place for them to stay in Tyringham while they're working on the investigation.
Okay.
When they get close to the hospital, we learn that they had received a call informing them that the victim unfortunately passed away. Corinne did let her know, though, that they would be keeping the body in the morgue so that Ren would have an opportunity to examine it before the victim was passed on to the local medical examiner's office.
Those belongings, too. He usually leaves clues.
After being greeted, Corinne and Ren, they quickly catch up. The women enter the morgue where a technician named Steven is waiting with the victim. Corinne tells Ren that the victim is a 21-year-old female named Andrea Myers. Upon examining the body, Ren immediately notes the deep ligature marks around her neck. The marks are all crisscrossed and in various stages of healing. Ren points out fingernail scratches mixed in with the ligature marks, indicating that she was unbound during at least some of the strangulation, as those marks were her desperately trying to loosen whatever was around her neck. Knowing that she was unbound and able to fight back, Ren is pretty confident in being able to determine that this wouldn't be a victim of Jeremy's, since he loves an unfair fight where he has the upper hand at all times. And while examining the back of Andrea's neck, Ren determines that she was garroted. This means that there was an apparatus of some sort used to tighten and release pressure in order to strangle and then revive the victim over and over again, or at least to relieve the victim.
Sounds like Jigsaw, for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like one of those contraptions.
Yeah, so it was like something that was like, allowed them to be in control and like apply and relieve pressure over and over again.
Okay.
So again, this is something that Ren, she's like, I don't think this doesn't seem to be indicative of Jeremy. But she goes on to...
I wonder if it's that little dwarf house. The little shack.
But she goes on to tell Corinne that she can almost bet for sure that there's a black eye hidden under Andrea's now smudged makeup, and then she questions if there was a rape kit done. When Jesus. Corinne confirms that they suspected that she had been sexually assaulted, Ren then confidently, fully confidently confirms that that's not Jeremy.
Yeah, it's not his MO.
Yeah. So Corinne apologizes for bringing her all the way out there for basically nothing. But then, Ren's like, it's fine. And she's almost kind of relieved that it's not one of Jeremy's victims.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that wasn't a breadcrumb that he left then. That was a mistake.
Yeah. So she's just kind of like, it's nice knowing that it's not him, but also she knows that there's still 2 more victims
Yeah,
in
there's still
tearing
2.
him
Yeah,
that
right.
like
Okay.
those might be
Yep.
his, or they seem to be his.
Yeah.
So later on in the day, after she finishes up at the hospital and everything, it's now evening, and Ren and Richard are sitting down eating burgers at a local restaurant. After they finish their meal, they take a walk down Essex Street in Salem, and Ren decides that she wants to go see a tarot reader. She pops into a little shop where the receptionist informs her that the tarot reader, Esme, is available for a 10-minute reading. When they sit down together for her reading, Esme informs Ren, based on the cards, that she is ignoring the signs and she needs to stop or else she will stop receiving them. She goes on to say that Ren is not going to be able to stop whatever is happening, and it's only going to end in loss. Finally, Esme pulls out one last card, the Tower, in the reverse position, and she says, quote, "The Tower, you can feel it coming. It's all around you, but you are trying to push it away. Remember, the foundation is crumbling. It was always weak. It has to fall in order for something better to take its place."
Okay.
End quote.
That's vague.
Ren kind of rhetorically questions if the cards are telling her all of that. It's like, you see all that there? But Esme just simply states that like these are all warnings and that she should heed them if they resonate with her. And so Ren's just like, all right, thanks.
I want my money back.
And she leaves.
Okay.
Well, yeah, Richard, like in the book, Richard's like, well, they give you vague things.
That's what I'm saying.
So
That was
that
super
like they
vague.
keep you
You can
coming
apply
back.
that to what you
Yeah,
want.
he's like, do you feel better about that, babe?
All right. You like it. I love it.
Yeah, so she leaves, and then once her and Richard are back outside the tarot parlor, she receives another call from Corinne. And this time, Corinne informs her that she had, at the police station over there, that they had spoke with the victim's sister. And the sister told them that Andrea actually had a couple of ex-boyfriends that they had planned to look into. One of them, Peter, she had a restraining order against, and the other, Daniel, had expressed some resentment towards her after their breakup.
Jesus.
But most notably, Andrea's sister mentioned that Andrea had recently been seeing someone new, and nobody in their family had met them or anything. All they knew was that it was an older guy named Phil. Like, they didn't know his last name or anything like that.
Phil. Okay.
They were just all aware that Andrea had like a history of dating bad men. So
Sounds like it.
yeah, so they're like, it's not like weird that she was being secretive about it.
Yeah.
But basically the police are gonna work it, and Corinne just tells Ren that she'll keep her updated after they speak to the ex-boyfriends, and they
Okay.
hang up. And then Ren and Richard grab some coffees, and then they head back to the car and start to make the drive to Tyringham.
Trudeau's first name is Phil, right?
Philip.
Okay.
So the following night, Jeremy goes to a local bar to hunt for his next victim.
Okay.
Almost immediately, he spots her and he begins studying her. He sits at the bar and he watches her for 2 hours before he approaches the bar and before he approaches the bartender, and he tells the bartender that he would like to send a drink over to the pretty lady with blonde curly hair. Jeremy mentions that she appears to be health conscious, given that she's been talking about clean eating and Pilates. And the bartender kind of
So how
side
close
eyes
are you?
him. Yeah, he's like, were you eavesdropping on her?
How fucking close are you?
Yeah, Jeremy's like annoyed, and he's like, but you know, he tries to keep his facade. And he's like, no, not at all. I'm just interested in her. Haven't you ever been interested in anybody before?
Fucking stalker.
And so he places an order for an Aperol Spritz for the woman, and the bartender's still kind of like, the fuck? So he's like, let me see your ID.
There you go. Here we go.
Jeremy pulls out the ID that he stole from Tom. And the bartender kind of like looks back and forth at Jeremy and the picture on the ID saying the name Tom out loud. And then he's like, hey, Tom, what's your birthday? But luckily, Jeremy came prepared.
Yep.
And he had memorized all of the pertinent information on the ID.
He's good. He's fucking
so
good.
With confidence, he says, July 5th, 1984. And now the bartender doesn't have anything else to push back on, so he's like...
What, they look identical?
Okay. Close enough.
All right. Okay.
So he's like,
God
whatever, I'll make your fucking drink. And before...
Throws the idea.
Yeah, before he, like, walks off, Jeremy slides him an extra 20, and he's like, why don't you deliver that drink to the pretty lady over there? And the bartender's like, fuck you, but that's $20. So he takes the $20 and delivers the drink to the pretty lady. After she receives it, she carries the drink over to meet Jeremy at the bar. And she thanks him for the drink, but then she tells him that she's actually a gin and tonic girl. And she introduces herself as Charlie. She sits down and they begin flirting. And, you know, they're talking while they're sitting at the bar. And at one point he goes, let me guess your sign, as in her zodiac sign. And he guesses that she's a Leo, solely based off of her mane-like hairstyle. And she laughs him off, saying that she's a Sagittarius. And he admits that he actually had no idea what her sign was. Leo was just the only one he knew because that was his mother's sign. And she giggles some more, and she pulls out this laminated card from her wallet that lists all the zodiac signs along with their date ranges. Oh, God. And Jeremy takes a look and he goes, guess I'm a Capricorn. So they continue drinking and talking. Well, Charlie really continues talking.
Okay.
And as they're talking, Charlie's friends drunkenly approach the table to let her know that they're going to be heading out. And then one of her friends says to her, I'll bring your phone over tomorrow, revealing that Charlie had actually forgotten her phone over at her friend's house.
Oh, shit.
So as she's saying bye to her friends, Charlie ends up bumping her purse off of the table, knocking out its contents. Ever the gentleman, Jeremy swoops in to clean up the mess for her, while conveniently pocketing the purple cylinder that rolled out of her bag.
Mace.
They continue talking some more, and Charlie's going on and on about how she's so adventurous and spontaneous because she's a Sagittarius. So Jeremy
maybe
gets this clever idea, and he's like, hey, you like going on adventure, right?
Let's go on a walk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So she like kind of hesitates, but then he's like, it's just only the abandoned fairgrounds. It's just right down the street. Like it's
with no phone.
Right there. And she's like, I guess, but like, you should know that I have mace. And he's like, oh, that's fine. Don't worry. I promise you won't have to use it.
This is a white girl, isn't it?
I mean, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay.
We have to cut that out.
God, you can't be this stupid. Okay, go ahead. No phone. Okay, that's fine. Oh, goodness. Go ahead. Zero survival skills right now. But it's fine.
So Jeremy walks with Charlie from the bar over to the abandoned fairgrounds, where he directs her towards the back entrance. He's like, I know how to get in back here. And, you know, she starts getting a little nervous and asks if he has a flashlight. And much to her relief, Jeremy actually pulls out a small mag light. And he's like, I always come prepared. Before he smashes the mag light into her nose.
Oh, shit.
And then he grabs her by the arm, pulling her over to the dark trees, and shoves her to the ground. Charlie's crying and she begins digging in her purse while slowly trying to like scoot away from Jeremy. And he asks, "Oh, are you looking for this?"
It's the mace.
As he holds up the purple cylinder he stole from her purse. Yep, her canister of mace.
Yep.
Then he shines his light in her eyes and sprays the mace directly at her. Charlie tries to scream, but Jeremy grabs her by the throat, telling her how stupid she is for not knowing where her mace is at all times. Then he pulls her up and directs her to silently walk with him. He drags her into the grandstand where he reveals the paintball gun he had hidden beneath the slew of discarded papers. Jeremy explains to Charlie that they're going to play a game. He's going to let her go, and while she's running, if he hits her with the paintballs twice, then he gets to use his real gun for the third shot. He also informs her of the rules. She cannot scream, and she cannot run out into the road. If she breaks either of those rules, he'll shoot her with the real gun, and the game will be over.
Take off.
With
Take
that,
a chance.
he slips on his night vision glasses.
Night vision glasses.
Night vision glasses.
Okay. Those are some high-speed glasses.
And he tells her to run.
Okay.
So Charlie takes off running into the darkness, trying her hardest to keep quiet, despite the sounds of terror just threatening to force their way out of her throat.
Hopefully in a fucking Z.
Jeremy watches her running from afar, and just as she's passing in front of a tree, he shoots the paintball gun. Charlie hits the tree as the paintball makes impact with her ribs. She can't hold back the scream that escapes her. And Jeremy just yells at her, "No, this is too quick. Keep playing." So she continues running.
Run for the road.
And as she runs through the darkness, desperately searching for a place to hide and or a way out, Jeremy continues stalking behind her quietly and carefully. He watches her stop to catch her breath, but he puts a stop to that by shooting at the tree behind her. She's trying to run and look around her all at the same time when Jeremy starts throwing stones at her. And she's even more confused now, still trying to figure out where she's supposed to be going, when he aims the paintball gun one more time and shoots. This time, a blue paintball explodes on Charlie's temple. She's holding her head in pain, stumbling around, and then she drops to her knees and begins to vomit. Jeremy approaches her with his real gun in his hand now, and he directs her to stand up. He stares at her for a moment before returning the gun to the back of his waistband, and he just begins throwing rocks at her again. Charlie's like, "What the fuck, dude?" And she realizes that he just wants to keep playing. So now she's like, "Fuck this guy. I'm just going to go for it." And she just takes off for the road. And Jeremy just...
Not in a straight line.
Yeah, well, Jeremy just smirks to himself as he watches her run, because what she doesn't see, and he does, is the hair-thin perimeter wire that he's strung up around the areas lining the road. It's the piano wire that he had previously stashed.
Ooh.
He pulled it as tightly as he could around the perimeter that he set, and now he was anxiously awaiting the results.
Yeah. That's
As she's approaching the hidden wire, Jeremy shoots at Charlie one more time, this time hitting her in the thigh. Her body twists as she reaches down and back for her thigh, and as she spins, the back of her leg connects with the piano wire. She flies over the wire, and her body hits the ground with a thud, and she's holding her leg and screaming. When Jeremy approaches her, he can see that her Achilles tendon has been severed, and her foot is limp and dangling. She begins begging for her life, but it's no use. Jeremy quickly slams his knife into her stomach, and then he rips his blade to the side before removing it altogether, and he stands to watch her blood pour out of her abdomen.
Oof. Alrighty. Jesus.
So, We're a little over halfway. How you feeling?
I mean, yeah, this is pretty crazy. It's not the shock. I think there was more shock value in the first one just because I had no idea, like,
That's fair.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this one's still pretty crazy.
Yeah.
There's still questions that aren't.
Do you
answered.
want me to clear anything up without like, or there?
I don't think so.
Obviously
No,
no
so, like,
spoilers, but
So I'm waiting for
anything that
Emily,
you're confused on.
Ren,
Mm-hmm.
to go look at those bodies. I want to know what's engraved, and I think it's the forearm.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was something else. Oh, we already found out. I don't know where the paintball gun came from because that wasn't buried. So he must have bought that later.
So he hid 2 items inside the grandstand.
No, I know, but like
That was one of them.
right. We
When
don't know what
he-
the other item is, but I don't know where the paintball gun came from. Like when he picked that up.
So that was in one of the things that was one of the things that he had gotten in that bucket.
Oh,
There
it
were
was in
2
the bucket.
different guns.
Oh, I thought it was just the bow and then a handgun.
No, it said when he got the stuff out of the bucket in the woods, it said that there was 2 different guns. It didn't say what kind of guns. It just said that there were 2 different guns. So like I pieced that together later. That
But
the
hold on.
paintball
So
gun
he
was
has a
one of
gun
them.
in his back waistband, and then he has a crossbow that he shot the first 2. Well, no, I should say first because we're probably at hundreds by now. But the other 2, right? So there's a third gun, which is the paintball gun. That's 3 guns, not 2.
Oh fuck no! I didn't write the book.
What?
I said I don't know. I didn't write it.
Oh, you didn't write it. I said you didn't read it.
No.
Okay. No, that's the only thing that I'm still putting pieces together.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, like I was piecing it all together.
Yeah,
as
right.
Well.
But no, just
But yeah, no. He has the pistol
Yep.
in his waistband.
and then he has the bow.
crossbow.
Yep. So now he has a third gun, which that came out of I don't know where.
I don't know. Maybe he already.
Maybe he's collecting stuff
he
along the way.
already had the crossbow. Remember from the end, because that's how he shot LaRue.
Yeah, but I thought that he dropped that when he escaped. I thought he escaped with nothing because he fell backwards.
No, he
And I
took
thought-
all of his shit with him.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
because remember when they found that body and they were like, "Oh, he shot himself or whatever," and Ren was like, "There's
Yeah,
no
there's no
gun, there's
gun."
nothing."
Right, yeah.
He took his stuff with him, so he already had the crossbow.
That's one thing that wasn't clear. That's like the only thing that's not really clear right
I mean,
now.
I didn't really piece it together
is
until just
how,
now.
is
So,
how he escaped like that
oh, okay.
with stuff on him.
I
But-
guess it's described as like a crossbow pistol. I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just a pistol that you draw back.
Okay, well then that's
So
what he
it's-
has. It's a crossbow
not
pistol.
Yeah, but
guess it's not
that's
like
not getting
a-
tucked into your pants.
I don't know.
I don't know. No, it's fine. But oh, you're saying maybe that's the pistol and the crossbow are the
So
same.
he had the crossbow pistol originally from the first book. He picked up 2 guns in the bucket. So maybe that's
Yeah.
the gun he has in the waistband. and then the
Maybe.
paintball gun.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah. This guy's nuts.
All right. So, like I said, we're a little over halfway. Diving back in.
Okay.
So by now, Ren and Richard have made it to their rental cottage in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. She still has some time before LaRue arrives to accompany her to the police station for the investigation. So she and Richard opt to head into town for some coffee. While they're at the coffee shop, Ren overhears some locals talking about the victims that had been found near a local visitor center. And one of the locals mentions how they heard one victim had something carved into them. Immediately, they begin speculating whether it was a satanic ritual before concluding that it had to have been done by a tourist because a local simply would never.
Okay.
Later on, when Ren meets up with LaRue, he presents her with a series of photos and directs her to look at the third one. It shows, quote, in glossy color, there is a close-up of the victim's wrist, bruised and bloody. There, sliced crudely into the skin, is the outline of a bracelet. Little notches in a row, followed by what is meant to be the bracelet's charm.
E.
The deep wound representing it is unmistakably in the shape of a heart. End quote. Remember, that's what her bracelet looked like.
But there was an E.
There was
wasn't
an
there?
E. He didn't carve the E into the
Okay,
heart,
just the
but
heart.
it looked like
right.
her bracelet.
Got it. Yeah, so it was hers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there was any doubt that these were victims of Jeremy, well, it's officially been squashed.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, though, LaRue informs her that he's been trying to work with the Kingsborough Police Department on this investigation, but they're reluctant to accept the help. Turns out the Kingsborough Police Department has to step in to assist the Tyringham Police Department because it's so small, but LaRue suspects that they're just going to take it over for themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he's like, just be prepared that they're not like super cooperative right now.
Well, this is a federal investigation, though, at this point, because there's a nationwide manhunt in multiple states, so they could easily bring in.
I mean,
entity, right?
they're not the feds, though.
Yeah, right.
They still only have jurisdiction in Louisiana, so like, it's still that they're there like unofficially.
Okay, there's no federal entity there yet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so now it's a new day, and Jeremy is now standing outside of Philip Trudeau's doorway, staring back at him. And he knows that Philip is anxious about him being there, and Jeremy loves feeding off of it. He says, I know you want to shut the door in my face, but I really need a friend.
What the
I need your help.
Fuck?
But Philip's like, how the fuck did you even know where I live? You got to get out of here. I'm going to give you a head start, and then I'm calling the police. And Jeremy gets a real dark look on his face, and in a harsh whisper, he says, make sure you start at the very beginning. When was that again? Oh, 2002? And Philip tries to deny his vague allegation, but Jeremy pushes in, basically telling him that if Jeremy goes down, he's taking Philip down with him. And he's pretty sure that this small town cop is going to love hearing about his seemingly good-natured local's sordid past.
What's his occupation again? Phil?
He's a pastor.
He's a pastor. Okay.
Jeremy doesn't know he's a pastor.
Okay.
So Jeremy insists that he only needs a place to stay, and Philip like backs down now that he's threatening him basically, and allows him into his home.
Well, you're only going to back down if he has something against you.
Yeah. And Jeremy takes in the interior of Philip's home. It's pleasant and it's clean. And then there are several crosses on the walls. And Jeremy jokingly asks if he's a priest or something. Philip just says that he's not interested in being involved in whatever Jeremy is doing. But Jeremy shoots back, telling him that he's been involved from the very beginning. Philip just screams back at him that he never asked to be involved. And he says, she could have been saved. We could have gotten her help. And everything would have been fine because it was an accident.
We don't know about that story yet, right?
Well, here's where we get that backstory.
Okay.
So, the date is July 6th, 2002.
Yep.
Jeremy and Philip were 17 and 18, respectively. And thanks to their fake IDs, they had just spent the evening drinking at a local bar. Jeremy notes that their fake IDs weren't anything spectacular, but Philip's dad was a judge. And now Philip wasn't like a bad kid in the typical sense.
Thought he was a cop. Was he on the investigation?
That's John LaRue's dad was a cop.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
LaRue's dad was the detective.
He was part of the investigation.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
But Philip's dad was a judge.
Got it.
And so the boys would get into like the, typical teenage boy trouble, sneaking out, having beers together, or they would take Philip's parents' speedboat out on the lake without permission. Like
Speedboat.
Yeah. But they didn't like do anything crazy. But on this night, when they were leaving the bar, Philip attempted to toss his keys to Jeremy, and then they go flying past him, landing on the gravel near a young woman who was saying bye to her friends. And when Jeremy walks over to the bar to pick up the keys, she flirtatiously turns to him and says, "I hope that wasn't a ploy to get my attention." But Jeremy, immediately annoyed, responds, "It wasn't. Get over yourself." And he starts to walk away. And she just kind of laughs and she's like, "Fuck you." And Jeremy stops and slowly turns back and just stares at her. Mm-hmm. She notices the dark look in his eyes, and she just hurriedly turns and walks away down the dark road. And Jeremy turns back to Philip, tosses the keys back to him, and he's like, "Good luck, buddy. I'm not driving." And Philip's like, "No, I obviously had more to drink than you did. Like, you have to drive." But Jeremy is like, "No, I'm not going to do it." And he just sits in the passenger seat, and he's like, "Just take it slow. It'll be fine. Like, let's just go. Whatever. I'm not driving your fucking car."
Okay.
And so Philip goes, and they're driving down the road, and he starts rambling on about how hungry he is. And Jeremy opens the window and like closes his eyes and just feels the fresh air flowing past his face. And in a split second, he realizes that Philip's gone silent. And just as he looks over to see Philip's head bob down, he suddenly sees a human lit up in the headlights right before them. Before he can react, there's a loud thud, followed by the sound of screeching tires. Philip was awake now, screaming and gripping the steering wheel tightly. He stopped the car, frantically looking around, asking if he hit a deer. But Jeremy knows it wasn't a deer. Mm-hmm. He gets out of the car, slowly looking around at the ground for her. And Philip gets out as well, going to the front of the Jeep and looking at the dented hood. And he's like, "Oh my God, it ruined my Jeep." He still thinks that they hit a deer.
Ooh.
And Jeremy ignores him, excitedly picks up his pace, still searching for her. And then suddenly he hears her. She's whimpering. And when he walks closer to her sounds, he sees her lying on her back, holding her clearly broken leg. And she's sobbing and yelling for help. And when she realizes that it's Jeremy standing over her, her tone changes and she yells, You hit me with your car." He steps closer to her and he pulls out his pocket knife just as she's slipping into unconsciousness. And he simply replies, "Wrong." And Philip runs up behind him, and immediately he's panicking and crying. And he's like, "Oh my God, what have I done? We have to call 911. But Jeremy turns to him and like shakes him. And he's like, "She's still alive, but she's got a really nasty head wound. And like, you just need to listen to me real quick. You fell asleep after we'd been drinking at the bar. Like, if she dies, this is vehicular homicide."
Yeah, 100%.
And realistically, even if she lives, like, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because you were drinking and driving and you still hit her.
Yeah.
So Philip is still panicking and like questioning if maybe they should just call it in anonymously. And meanwhile, Jeremy finds her purse on the ground and he's sifting through it and finds her ID, which reads Morgan Davies, age 21. Jeremy tells Philip that he's going to have to help him if he still wants to have a life and go to law school. And he's like, "I know your dad's a judge and all, but like, I don't know if he can get you out of this." So Jeremy runs back to the car. He cuts the lights, and then they start moving Morgan further into the woods together. After they place her on the ground, Jeremy kneels over her body, holding his pocket knife, and he instructs Philip to hold the light still so he can see. As soon as Philip realizes what he is doing, he tells Jeremy he doesn't want to be a part of this. He never wants to talk about it, and he turns to walk away. But just as he does, Morgan wakes up and begins struggling against Jeremy immediately. Jeremy's fighting back, and Philip starts yelling at him to stop, but Jeremy continues. He slams her head into the ground, and he holds her down with his body weight. Jeremy then leans in close to her and whispers in her ear, "How's this ploy to get your attention?" And and then he slices her throat all the way down to the bone.
Jesus.
And he watches as her blood flows out of her body.
Is Philip still right there? Oof.
Philip is gagging and bracing himself against a tree. And as he does, his wallet slips out of his back pocket.
Ooh.
Jeremy just looks over at him and he says, when you're done, we have to move her. Philip argues, again saying that he doesn't want to be part of this.
Too late.
Jeremy reminds him that he already is.
It's too late.
And they wouldn't be here if Philip hadn't hit her in the first place. So when Philip surrenders and shuffles over to help Jeremy lift Morgan, Jeremy sees that his wallet has fallen onto the ground. And he picks it up to hand it back to him, but first he pulls out his high school ID and slides it into Morgan's pocket. Jeremy holds the wallet out to Philip and tells him, like, hey, you dropped this. Here you go.
What?
And then together they carry her body deeper into the woods until they come up to a decrepit chimney. And there they bury her beneath the hearth. And Philip even adds extra large stones on top of like where they've buried her. And then he quietly reflects over her makeshift gravesite. Their friendship was never the same after that night.
Jeez.
So that's what happened all those years ago.
Wow. That's crazy. Does it ever say what came of the ID in her pocket? They never found the body.
So the next morning...
okay.
The next morning, LaRue heads over to the rental cottage where Ren and Richard are staying. And he and Ren discuss the local police department. And he tells her how they're continuing to stonewall him. And, you know, like, they're allowed to because they haven't been formally invited to the investigation. They don't have any jurisdiction. And he says that, you know, they aren't telling him much, but they did kind of, like, halfway let it slip that they have an informant or someone who's, like, helped them solve cases before. So he just kind of thinks that that's probably why the department's brushing him off. Like, they're just keeping it all local.
Okay.
And so then Ren briefly mentions Philip Trudeau and like the online sleuthing that she did. She was looking into him and his ex-wife and all that stuff. But LaRue tells her that like he brought it up to the police and they said that they already cleared him and that they weren't going to pursue him anymore. So keep in mind, this is a small town, and Philip is probably like one of the only pastors there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're like, we're not going to harass him.
It's like a good old boy kind of
Yeah,
thing.
they're like, we cleared him, we looked into him. Okay. We're not going to harass the fucking local pastor. So
It's
they're
'cause he
like.
baptized your son, probably.
Right? So, eventually, you know, when they head over to the police department, the Kingsborough Police Department, they're greeted by a young officer named Officer Bradley, and he immediately starts talking shit to LaRue, calling him Junior specifically. And so that's when it becomes clear that the whole station knows about LaRue's father having worked on like the Bayou Butcher case previously. And so they've all like decided amongst themselves that the only way that LaRue could have possibly become detective was because of nepotism. So they're all like, okay, big boy, come in here and work on the case.
Okay.
Like they are basically just like, you're only here because your daddy worked the case.
Okay.
So they just don't want to fucking work with him. But soon they're greeted by Lieutenant Brixton, who directs them to follow him into his office. And there he informs LaRue that he's only welcomed him there because he has immense respect for his father. But Lieutenant Brixton also makes it abundantly clear that they're on thin ice already and that he will quickly revoke what little access they do have if LaRue tries to throw his weight around. So he's like,
Okay.
I had respect for your dad. My guys obviously have a problem with you. If you're pushing back against them, you're fucking out of here.
Okay.
So LaRue assures him, like, I'm not trying to overtake your investigation. I'm here, like, we all have a common goal.
Yeah,
basically. But
Why is everybody not working together right now?
but when he suggests that they re-interview Philip Trudeau, Again, the lieutenant gets visibly defensive and he's like, we have already cleared him. We're not talking to him again unless it's absolutely necessary.
Except he's housing Jeremy right now, but okay.
So, yeah, when Ren and LaRue leave the station, they're like, well, guess we're just going to have to go talk to him ourselves.
There you go.
So they head over to his church. And when they enter the church, they see a group of 12 people sitting together holding Bibles. And a man in his late 30s stands and asks if they're there for Bible study. LaRue immediately asks if he's Philip Trudeau, which he confirms. And then LaRue asks if they can speak privately.
Okay.
And he knows that if he asks LaRue there in front of his Bible study group, that like he's going to say yes. So they step away and LaRue introduces himself and then he introduces Ren. But when he says her name, Philip's eyes widen slightly in a micro expression before he smiles genuinely and shakes her hand. And LaRue asks if he's had any contact with Jeremy Rose, and he lightly inquires about their time as young men together. And Philip politely answers all of the questions, again, stating that they lost touch a long time ago, and as kids, they had spent time during the summer, like getting up to typical kid activities. And while LaRue and Philip are speaking, Ren begins to take an unsuspecting look around his office, and in doing so, she accidentally drops a stack of papers off his desk. And as she's picking them up, she notices a gas receipt from Salem, but she can't see any other details before she like quickly replaces the stack, and then she just moves back over to the men. And when it becomes apparent that they're not going to get any new information from him, LaRue and Ren thank Philip for his time, and then they leave the church.
Okay.
And when they head back to the car, LaRue remarks how he thinks that Philip is a power-hungry shithead, and Ren chastises him for speaking that way about a pastor. But she knows that like something's off with him, so she doesn't really push too much.
Okay.
And she mentions the gas receipt that she found, but LaRue's kind of like, there's no details. There's not really anything we can do. He's like, it's Halloween time. People flock to Salem. Like, okay.
Okay.
There's a gas receipt, whatever. So they move
Wasn't
on.
there the girl was strangled in Salem, right?
Mm-hmm. And so they move on, and then they agree that like they're gonna give Ren is gonna give Corinne a call to see if she has any more information on the victim in Salem.
Okay. A lot of things are pointing to Phil.
So
Okay. We'll just blow past that. That's fine.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely suspicious.
I think he's still killing.
I think
he's a pastor that's killing.
killing pastor. That's some shit.
That's what it sounds like. She said that her last boyfriend, she dates dangerous men, right?
Yeah.
And she was raped and strangled and all this stuff by the last person that she was dating that we know of that she had contact with was Phil.
Yeah.
He was exposed to this
I mean, I guess.
heinous crime back in 2002. I don't know. I think Phil is not a good man, but I guess we'll find out.
Maybe there's two Phils.
Pastors usually aren't, right?
You should probably cut that out too.
Okay. Just saying.
Now we're back in present day, and we're in Jeremy's perspective in present day. So recall, they just had that flashback.
Yeah.
But now it is nighttime, and he's stalking through the woods again. But this time, he has walked up on a house party. From afar, he spots her. She looks to be about 25, and she has blonde hair slicked back into a messy bun. And she's currently chowing down on a sandwich. But then she abruptly stands, setting her plate on the chair behind her, and she announces to her friends, "Be right back, I gotta pee." And she staggers her way over to the tree line instead of towards the house. Jeremy quietly walks up on her, watching as she leans against the tree to squat, when he accidentally steps forward, causing a twig to snap. The girl jumps up, she pulls her pants up quickly, and he's almost afraid that he sobered her up.
What was the last activity? So before the flashback, Phil and Jeremy were in Phil's house, right? And then they went into the 2002 flashback.
Yes.
And then it went to Ren's thing, right? And then went back to Jeremy.
Yeah.
How did Jeremy get to the house party?
So now it's like it's later on in the day. It doesn't say, there's just
So
a
he
gap.
left Phil's.
Yeah, there's a gap in time
Okay.
where he left Phil's house.
Okay.
And so now
So he's just out wandering.
he's stalking for his next victim.
Okay. What town is this again?
Tyringham.
Okay.
Tyringham, I think is where they're at. Yeah. So he is stalking her. He walks up on her while she is peeing. The girl jumps up, pulling up her pants quickly, and he's almost afraid that he just sobered her up. He puts on his best impression and apologizes, saying that he was only looking for a place to pee. They chat for a minute and laugh together over not using the bathroom inside the house. Jeremy again lies and introduces himself as Brett. The girl steps close to him and introduces herself as Jenna. Jeremy charmingly asks if she'd like to take a walk with him, to get away from all the noise. She hardly hesitates before saying, absolutely. And they're walking together. As they're walking together, she turns to him and asks, so how do you know Jeff? Jeremy assumes that this is the person who owns the house where the house party's happening. And he casually says, we used to be roommates. And Jenna exclaims, saying, oh my God, you used to live with him and Dave in Cambridge, right? Jeremy plays this off and then casually mentions that he now lives nearby. And she's intrigued, asking if they're going there. But Jeremy says, no, I want to take you for a romantic boat ride first. She's practically fawning over him now, but suddenly she says, oh, wait, I probably shouldn't go out in a body of water with a stranger.
No
right?
shit, huh?
Yeah, probably shouldn't do that. But Jeremy's like, I'm not a stranger, though. I used to live with Jeff and Dave. And she's like, you're right. Okay, let's go.
Oh, my God.
So,
Another blonde.
Fortunately for...
God.
She is blonde.
I know. Clearly.
Terrible.
God.
So, fortunately for Jeremy, this is the Berkshires, and everyone is extra trusting, obviously.
Yeah.
So, the boat that they find at the dock isn't secured.
Okay.
And so, Jeremy steps onto the boat and then welcomes Jenna on as if it's his own. And he starts the motor, and they move out into Lake Garfield under the moonlight.
Okay.
So as they're heading out further into the lake, Jenna says, so I assume you're single? Jeremy plays along, asking why she would assume that. And she giggles and just scoots closer to him, saying, well, I guess it isn't smart to assume, huh? And she keeps inching closer to him, but Jeremy couldn't be more annoyed. And when they reach the most isolated part of the lake, Jeremy turns to her and says, maybe you were right. Maybe I am a stranger.
No shit.
And she thinks he's flirting, so she's like, I don't think so, Brett. And she starts leaning into him. And he hisses back at her, my name's not Brett. So, of course, she's like, what the fuck? Why'd you lie about your name? I'm like, who are you? Just take me back to the party. But
Too late for all that.
Jeremy just calmly says, no, I think I'll stay out here a bit longer. And and she threatens to scream, but he informs her that he'll slit her throat before anyone will even hear her.
You're also in the middle of a lake.
Yeah. He then calmly tells her that he wants her to get into the water, and she has 30 seconds to decide if she's going to do it and take her chances swimming to shore, or if she's going to stay in the boat and take her chances with him. So Jeremy's counting down the seconds while Jenna's eyes dart back and forth between him and the shoreline. Now they're in like the most center part of the lake, like furthest away from the shoreline. And when she has 10 seconds left to decide, she launches herself into the freezing water. And when she comes up for air, Jeremy brings the boat to a slow crawl and begins following behind her. She's struggling for air, but Jenna pushes herself through the frigid water, and every time he revs the motor at her, she attempts to slightly change course and bring more distance between the two of them. Jeremy calls out to her, "Make sure you keep your head up. I don't want the propeller having all the fun." She's gagging on the dirty lake water, desperately trying to stay afloat and make her way towards the shore. Finally, Jeremy watches as Jenna pulls herself up in chest-deep water and struggles her way to the shore before dropping to her hands and knees, beginning to crawl. She barely has time to catch her breath before Jeremy and the boat come careening up onto the rocks, and she takes off running as fast as she can in her water-soaked clothes and boots. She takes off into the woods with Jeremy following behind, but before he can get too close to her, the movement stops and Jeremy pauses. He quietly listens for her breathing, acknowledging out loud that he knows she's hiding. His eyes adjust quickly to the darkness as he's become more familiar with moving around in the woods at night. Soon, he spots her. She's clearly moving around cautiously and unable to see more than maybe a few feet in front of her. And he notices that she's holding her hands out in front of her, reaching out ahead for some kind of heads up to see what she's about to walk into. Jeremy moves in closer to her, and he holds his knife out, just within her reach.
Jeez.
And when she swipes her hand out in front of her, she catches her palm on his blade. And before she can fully react, Jeremy lunges at her, grabbing her neck, walking her backwards, and slamming her into a tree. She's begging him to stop, telling him that there are houses all around the woods. He can't do this. Someone's going to see. And again, she pleads with him to just let her go. She says she doesn't even remember his real name. She can barely see him in the dark. And if he just lets her go, she won't say anything to anybody. But Jeremy holds her against the tree, and he reminds her that it was her bad decisions that brought her here. She willingly left with him. She got on the boat with him.
Yeah.
Everything was all her choice. And then he stabs her in the stomach and drags the knife to the side before he lets go of her body and she falls to the ground. Looking at her, he can see that she's still alive. So he picks her up and calmly begins dragging her back through the forest.
She should have just kept running.
She should have.
Why did you stop?
So over to Ren's perspective now, and we learn that something had been found that morning on the lake by 3 teenage boys, ages 14, 15, and 16. They had taken their parents' boats out for a joyride, and that's when they found the unmanned boat that Jeremy had stolen the night before in the center of Lake Garfield.
The center.
Immediately, they called authorities, but Ren learned that when they did, investigators were already on their way to the lake because they had received an anonymous tip about a body at the lake.
Okay.
The caller didn't give any additional details, and because they called the anonymous tip line, there was no way for the investigators to follow up.
Right.
Turns out, what the boys had found inside the boat was actually a large pool of blood with only a human heart lying in it.
Oh, shit. Just the heart.
Ren quickly goes over to the boat when they get to the scene, and she begins investigating. Almost immediately, she can see that the heart was practically ripped out of its owner. Quote, Part of the aorta that is still attached has been ripped, as if the killer used a few quick cuts of a blade while pulling the organ out forcibly.
Ooh.
End quote. And then she notes that based on the color of the heart, it's evident that it hadn't been in the boat for very long.
Wow.
From around the corner of the shoreline, an officer yells out, informing everyone that they've found a body. Ren and LaRue head over right away. And as they're walking, LaRue inquires about Ren's call to Corinne. She tells him that Corinne and the Salem police are almost certain that Andrea was killed by an ex-boyfriend, as they found additional horrific injuries indicating long-term torture.
That was the rape
victim in Salem.
Yeah,
yes. Okay. But then as they move over to the trees, that's when this new victim comes into view. She is sitting straight up with her back against a tree, legs crossed in front of her. And as they get closer, Ren identifies the rope that's pulled taut, tied around her face and head, also around the tree, holding her in place. So there's a rope tied.
Like a noose, but she's not hanging. She's
no, it's
sitting up.
tied around her face and the tree, holding her straight up.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So she's sitting straight up against the tree.
Okay.
Staring at them, walking at her, essentially. Ren can see that the woman's stomach is torn open, and she's willing to bet that her heart is missing.
Yeah, 100%.
A young detective approaches them, introducing himself as James Warren, and he tells Ren that there's a medical examiner coming from Westfield, but since she's there with her kit, he's asking if she can get started with some initial reads on the victim.
Okay.
And so without missing a beat, Ren jumps into action. And she squats down and begins investigating the rope that's tied around the victim's head. And upon closer inspection, she sees that there is blood dried on the rope around the victim's mouth, indicating that she was alive when she was tied up.
Jesus.
And Ren is then certain that this was Jeremy's doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So tied her up and then ripped the heart out.
Possibly, yeah.
Oof.
Either way, she was alive.
That's fucking...
Because the tie
she would be
went
dead
through her mouth
Yeah.
and then around the tree.
But if he took the heart out and then wrapped her up, she
Yeah.
would have already been dead. So he definitely wrapped her up and then gutted her. Oof. That's brutal. Okay.
Well, he's sick.
But then you said the boat was in the center of the lake, right? Mm-hmm. With blood. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So back at Philip's house, he is angry and yelling at Jeremy, telling him that he never wanted to be a part of any of this. Philip is scrubbing his hands in the kitchen faucet under scalding hot water, but the temperature doesn't seem to bother him. Philip screams more at Jeremy, telling him that he only agreed to let him stay in his house. He never agreed to be part of staging a dead body in the woods.
Who was scrubbing their hands? Philip?
Jeremy's like, shut up, you barely even touched her, which makes Philip scream at him even more. And Jeremy just calmly reminds him that they're connected forever now, all because Philip drove home from the bar that night and Jeremy saved his ass. So Philip clearly feels stuck, so he succumbs to Jeremy yet again when Jeremy tells him that he needs just one more favor before he goes.
Wait, hold on. Just so I got this clear, right? This isn't another flashback, right?
No, it's current.
This is current.
Current.
So he's not washing his hands from the first body in 2002. He's washing the hands from the new body for the heart. Got it. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And so Jeremy tells Philip that he needs him to make just one more phone call from the same payphone as last time.
Last time?
And all he needs to do is tell them that they need to check the abandoned fairgrounds. That's it.
Okay. That's the piano wire.
So.
Okay.
The piano wire was over at the grandstand. Yes, at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
So, over at the fairgrounds, Ren and LaRue are standing in the grandstand now with local officers investigating the scene.
So that phone call was
they've
placed
received the
okay,
tip.
got it. Okay.
One of the officers, Officer Michaels, casually mentions that the flowers that are scattered on the ground look like the same flowers that had been scattered down Railroad Street the Friday prior. And Wren notices that the flowers look familiar, but they're all dead and decaying, so it's hard to place them. And then when LaRue picks one up, he begins inspecting it, and he says, they look like southern magnolias, but they're not local here. He's from Louisiana.
I can tell.
Okay.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So as soon as she hears that, Wren's heart begins to race, and she clasps onto LaRue's arm. And with wide eyes, she tells him, that's my wedding flower.
Mm-hmm. Where's the husband?
He's back at the rental.
Just by himself?
Yeah, so they're like, they're trying to work the investigation.
Yeah, I know, right.
So, like, he wouldn't be allowed there anyway. Because they're working an active investigation.
Okay.
So LaRue starts, he's trying to calm her down and, like, talk her back down and, like, get her back to earth and everything. And they continue scanning the scene. And as they move further into the grandstand, Wren begins to smell decomposition. Following her nose, she moves to a large room on the second floor. And as soon as she enters, she spots a pile of leaves topped with previously white southern magnolias. As they work to remove the pile of leaves, the smell of decomp gets more pungent. And finally, they reveal a woman beneath the pile. Her hair is stained dark from the blood, and Wren can see blue paint splattered down the side of her face and clothes. As soon as she sees the stomach wound, Wren announces that this was for sure Jeremy. The officers are all gagging and struggling to take in the scene, but Wren is actively digging in her bag for a pair of tweezers. In the corner of the woman's eye is a tiny ball of paper.
Corner of her eye? Oh.
And using an evidence bag as a clean surface, Wren, after having removed the ball of paper from the woman's eye, slowly unwraps the ball of paper with her tweezers. And as it unravels, she sees the word Richard.
The husband.
Her breath hitches, and she picks up her phone to call her husband. But there's no answer.
Uh-huh.
So she calls again and again, still no answer. She's trying to calm herself, tell herself, like, okay, he's probably in the shower, it's fine. So then she sends him a text asking if he's at the rental. And when LaRue approaches her asking what's going on, she tells him about the paper that she found, what it said. And he's trying to console her and reassure her. He's like, it's a bluff. Like, he's just trying to, like,
this guy doesn't
he's
bluff.
Trying to lead us somewhere. But then she gets a text from Richard, and it says, Wren, he found me.
Mm-hmm.
So back to Jeremy and Philip.
He should have never been left alone.
They're currently standing in the trees behind Wren and Richard's rental house. Jeremy recalls how easy it was to break into their Louisiana home, and he's more than certain that he'll have no trouble getting into this one. Jeremy instructs Philip to go to the front door and keep Richard distracted so that he can sneak in through the back. And so Philip does as he's told, and he heads to the front door while Jeremy continues to watch Richard through the back window. When Philip gets to the door, he introduces himself with a fake name and proceeds to give Richard a sales pitch on solar panels. While he's distracted, Jeremy finds that the sliding screen door is locked as the large door has been left open for airflow. So he simply cuts a large slit in the locked door and slides his way inside the home. Just as he hears Richard say goodbye to Philip and move to close the door, Jeremy slinks up behind him and places his hand on Richard's shoulder. Richard jumps back, obviously alarmed because nobody was in the home with him. But Jeremy simply smiles at him before unloading Charlie's mace right into Richard's eyes. Although blinded, Richard immediately starts swinging at Jeremy, connecting on his second punch. By now, Philip has run into the house, closed the front door behind him, keeping their scuffle away from public eyes.
He's not new to this. This isn't some regular pastor.
Richard and Jeremy are wrestling on the floor, and Jeremy reaches for his knife in his boot, and at the same time, Richard ends up grabbing like a piece of broken glass. Something broke in this scuffle.
Oh, the scuffle. Okay, yeah.
And he slices Jeremy's cheek with it.
Ooh, nice.
And they struggle to their feet, and as they're facing each other, Richard tells Jeremy that he's a fucking loser. And he goes to lunge at him, but before he can, Philip comes up behind him and plunges a syringe into his neck along his hairline.
It's a regular pastor, huh?
Richard turns quickly, and immediately he begins to stumble with his eyes darting between Philip and Jeremy. His body is quickly becoming paralyzed, and Jeremy pushes him into the couch where he falls into a slump. Jeremy watches as Richard loses movement in his limbs. Then he watches as his eyes stop blinking and his face muscles become paralyzed. Jeremy knows that simultaneously Richard's throat is becoming paralyzed too, and he listens to his labored breathing as he's on the brink of suffocation. Jeremy picks up Richard's ringing phone to see the message from Ren asking if he's at the house.
Saw that coming. I knew he didn't.
That's when
text
Jeremy replies.
Yep.
When Philip asks what the hell he's doing, he simply replies, "It's fine. They're going to walk right into the trap." And then he laughs and he sends another message before throwing Richard's phone on Richard's still lifeless body.
So did he die from the syringe?
Mm-hmm.
What was
it?
It
Was a paralytic.
I don't know what that means.
It
That just paralyzes
him.
you.
It like fully paralyzed him.
Huh.
And so
Like organs and all? His body just shut down?
So, oh my computer's gonna die. So one thing that like it mentioned was that he's like laying there and he's basically telling Jeremy that like he's not shit and he's like never gonna be anything, and Ren is thriving despite him. But like while this is happening, he's having like labored breathing because his muscle, like his body is shutting down.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Okay.
Including the muscles that like know how to breathe.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where he's saying he's on the brink of suffocation
Wow.
because like he's slowly losing
Ren's
his
husband just
ability
died.
to breathe. Yes. So meanwhile, Ren and LaRue are reading the last message that she received from Richard. She had asked if he was okay, and he replied saying that he was in the woods and his leg is broken. He tells her that Jeremy took him to a place that he called Morgan's Grave, and it was in the middle of the woods by an old chimney.
So you're not
That's
buying
just
that.
what he says in the message.
Okay.
And so she's freaking out, and LaRue's like, "Don't worry, we're gonna find him. Just we got to get this plan together. It's like make sure we're not like walking into a trap blind."
Why would he text you that and not call you? Okay. All right.
And
Okay.
so they're, you know, they go back to the police station. They're trying to like get teams together so that they can like converge simultaneously. And while they're there, Ren and LaRue are approached by yet another detective, Detective Holmes. And he tells them that they're putting a team together to like go to the rental house. And then they're also going to go, they're sending a team out to the woods so they can go to both places at the same time and see if they can find him.
Yeah.
And so he then tells them that they received a tip from someone of where they can actually find Jeremy. And so there's
from
speculation that it's a trap.
No shit,
Yeah,
huh?
because Jeremy loves to set them. But Ren's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, my husband's somewhere. Whether there's a trap or not, I'm going. So, like, come, don't come. I don't care. I'm going. And so they move forward with putting the teams together. And then Ren is approached by a female officer who introduces herself as Officer Ruby Graham. And she tells Ren that they will be riding to the rental home together. And so the whole team goes. Ren rides with Officer Ruby Graham over to the house.
Where the fuck did you come from?
And, well, I'm guessing just to make her feel comfortable. That's why they brought in a woman.
Okay.
I don't know. So they drive over to the house in near silence. And when they arrive, Ren is instructed to just stay in the car. But Officer Ruby stays with her and turns on a monitor inside the car. And that's when Ren realizes that they're watching the live feed from an officer's body cam.
For the cemetery or the house?
They're
Which
watching
one?
a
Body cam for
officer
which?
walking up to the house.
To the house. Okay, got it.
And so through the monitor
That's probably not a
and
good
from
idea.
afar, they're able to see Detective Warren knock hard 3 times, the 3 pounds on the door,
Mm-hmm.
announcing the Kingsborough Police Department. Over to Jeremy.
Okay.
In the basement, he hears 3 loud knocks on the door and the announcement of the police department as they enter the home. But he's not worried. In fact, he's excited. Because while he was expecting them to go out to the woods looking for Richard, he still had a plan in place just in case they showed up here.
Okay.
So, I mean, he was really hoping that they were going to rush out to the chimney and then find his and Philip's little, dirty secret, Morgan, hidden out there.
Yeah, but they hit both at the same time.
Yeah. So he's just kind of silently wondering to himself, oh, well, if they're here, are they looking for Philip then? Did they find the body? What are they doing? And so while he's wondering this to himself, he starts searching through his bag that's on the floor near where he's been sleeping in the basement.
Philip's still at the house.
And what? Huh?
Philip's still at the house with Jeremy, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, they're all at the house. Okay.
But the gun that he's searching for currently is nowhere to be found.
Okay.
He can't find this gun that's supposed to be in his bag.
Philip took it.
And he dumps it out. He's turning the bag inside out. It's completely gone. And then that's when he realizes that Philip took it when Jeremy stupidly left him alone with his bag when they were outside of Ren's rental house.
Okay.
Jeremy curses himself and just moves forward with his plan. And all he has is his knife hidden in his sleeve. That's his only defense. But he's like, it's fine. I got a plan. On his first night here, he had scoped out the perfect hiding place in the basement. There's a tiny closet with an unfinished crawl space that was the perfect size for Jeremy to squeeze into. While he's in there, he immediately feels something dripping on him, and he can't quite make out what the liquid is, but it's a dark color and it's sticky and it's just dripping on him consistently. He has no choice but to deal with it.
That's in the crawl space?
He's hiding. Yeah.
Okay.
And
quick question. Are they...
We're going to cut that out. Soon enough, Jeremy hears the officers cascade down the basement stairs while he's hiding in the crawl space. And they're shouting commands at him. Or they're shouting commands just out in general and announcing their presence, basically, and trying to clear the area, trying to clear the basement. But then suddenly, the closet door swings open, and Jeremy hears the click of a weapon. The police officer states his name and announces that they have him surrounded. Slowly, Jeremy climbs out of the crawl space, and in one final bit of maliciousness, he slings the knife out of his sleeve and he slices one of the officers in the arm. But before he can make another move, he's on the ground with a knee in his back and he's being read his Miranda rights. The officers clear his hiding space and they move Jeremy up to the ground floor. So when he emerges into the sunlight, he sees Philip outside speaking to the police with a seriously concerned look on his face. When they move Jeremy into the living room, Philip saunters over to him. As he approaches Jeremy and the officers accompanying him, the officers meet Philip's eyes. They both give him a slight nod, and then they turn away from Jeremy as Philip leans in closely to speak to him. And that's when it all becomes crystal clear. Philip quietly says, "There was never any danger for me. You know that now, right?" He says, "This is my town. You never had the advantage over me." Mm-hmm. And Jeremy just smirks at him, but Philip continues, "Come on, Jer. Did you really think I would be stupid enough to leave the body where we buried her? Did you really think I would leave that thread for you or anyone else to pull?" Jeremy's eyes widen uncontrollably, as he realizes that Philip had gone back and moved Morgan Davies' body. That's really why Philip went along with everything that Jeremy was making him do. He knew that Jeremy was never going to be able to truly turn him in for her murder. So Jeremy's mind is racing, and he reflects on the way Philip had killed Richard and how he had watched him with what Jeremy now realizes was fascination while Richard slowly suffocated to death inside of his paralyzed body. At the same time, Jeremy realizes that Philip didn't put distance between them because he was afraid of what Jeremy had become. He put distance between them to give himself time to explore his own depravity in private.
I fucking told you.
Philip continues, still standing closely to Jeremy, so only he can hear, and he says, "What church do you think all these fine officers belong to? Who do you think baptizes their babies?"
I said that.
That's why I laughed when you said it.
Oh, that's great.
Lowering his voice even more, Philip whispers, "You know who my father is.
Yeah.
This police department isn't clean."
Yeah.
And the only thing Jeremy can do is threaten Philip one last time, telling him that he'll live to regret this betrayal. So back to Ren's perspective, and it starts out as a flashback to the day that Jeremy was captured.
Wait, how far forward do we just go?
You'll see.
Okay.
As we know, when they went to the rental house, Ren was instructed to stay in the car with Officer Ruby. Through the monitor, they watched as Detective Warren and the officers moved into the rental, and Ren waited with bated breath for Richard to emerge with them. But he didn't. And they only found some broken glass and Richard's phone. She learned that Jeremy had been found inside Philip Trudeau's home in his basement in a shit-covered hole. It was shit that was dripping on Jeremy in the crawl space.
Okay.
She also learned that Philip Trudeau was the one who turned Jeremy in. Apparently, Jeremy had shown up to Philip's house, threatened his family, and forced Philip to let him stay in his basement. Philip told the police that he let Jeremy stay there one night before he just couldn't take it anymore, and he went to turn him in. LaRue told Ren that he thought the story was bullshit because it looked like Jeremy had been there longer than just one night. But the local police department believed Philip, so that's what was accepted.
You don't say, huh?
And before she could fully process what she was hearing from LaRue, a message comes over another officer's radio informing them that a body was found at a chimney in the woods. It's an adult male.
Richard.
As soon as the description comes through, Ren falls to her knees and begins screaming and heaving into the leaves beneath her. And it's confirmed that the body that they found was Richard. So now it's present day, and it doesn't say specifically how many, but it's been weeks since Jeremy was arraigned on charges in Louisiana, and he hasn't spoken to anybody since he was arrested.
Wait. Charges in Louisiana? What about Massachusetts?
He was arraigned on the murders in Louisiana.
So he was extradited back to Louisiana. Okay.
Yep. And he hasn't spoken to anybody since he was arrested. Today, present day, Ren just received Richard's final autopsy report from the newer technician at the medical examiner's office.
Was he raped? Oh, okay.
That's fucked.
Sorry.
Jesus.
I mean, it's a pastor. You know. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just going to redo that.
Okay.
It's present day. And Ren received Richard's autopsy report from the newer technician at the medical examiner's office. She thanks him and sets the folder down on her work desk. This time, she had gone right back to work after Richard was murdered. And even if anybody wanted to, nobody stopped her this time. She just couldn't bear to be alone in their home all day long. But now, even when she is home, someone's always with her. There's a constant rotation of like her family and friends. She hasn't been left alone since Richard died.
Okay.
So later that night, when she returns home, Her friend Lindsay is already there waiting for her. And they have a quiet evening together, reminiscing about old times as young girls over some drinks. But without warning, there's a knock at the door. And naturally, they're hesitant to answer it. But then LaRue announces that it's him standing outside.
Philip.
LaRue.
Oh, okay.
And so, they let him inside and exchange pleasantries and everything before LaRue asks if he can speak with Ren alone. And when they're alone in the kitchen, LaRue asks if she's read Richard's autopsy report. And she tells him that she got the report today, but she just can't bear to read it yet. LaRue takes a deep breath and he tells her that he thinks they need to read it together right now because he doesn't think that Jeremy killed Richard by himself. He reveals that he believes Philip Trudeau was at the very least present while Richard was murdered. Ren's mouth goes dry and she breaks into a cold sweat. She immediately tells LaRue that she can't do this. Like, she's barely holding on now. But he continues saying that there's only one other person on Jeremy's visitor log besides his lawyers. One other person that he's willing to speak to.
Philip went to go see him in prison?
Quote, rubbing her hands over her face, she takes a couple deep breaths before looking back at LaRue, eyes filled with resolve, and she says, I'll do it. The end.
I'll do it?
She'll go speak to him in prison.
Okay.
He hasn't spoken to anybody since he's been arrested.
Oh, I thought you meant that Philip went to go see him. There's only one other person that he talked to.
No, it was her.
Oh, so
He's
she's
saying
going to
there was only one other person on the visitor log besides Jeremy's lawyers that he was willing to speak to.
Okay.
So LaRue was implying that she was the only person that Jeremy was willing to speak to.
Oh, okay.
So she's
when you said
saying,
visitor log, I thought you meant that he went to go visit
oh,
her.
no.
Just
that's
who he's willing to see.
to go see him.
Oh, wow.
And so it ends with her saying,
yeah, I'll do it.
I'll do it.
Wow.
I'll go see him.
Which means he's going to snitch on Philip. Wow.
That's
okay.
the end of the book.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
That leaves it wide open for a third one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is absolutely going to be a series.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
What did you think of the book?
I liked it.
Yeah?
I thought it was really good.
That's good.
Like I said in the beginning, it was really detailed. Like,
Yeah, you were pretty
there's
blown away when you were reading it last night.
a lot of detail.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Last night when I finished it, I literally went, because it ends just like that.
Yeah.
Like, literally, that is the last quote of the book, as of her just saying, and like, I was trying not to lose my shit, but that's why I just like sat the book down and I just sat there.
I can
But
always
in my
tell
mind,
when
I was like,
books. Yeah, I can always tell when books get you there. I can always tell, and I'm just gonna let it ride. Because then you just like internally just like.
well, I was like,
flame.
I know. I was like, don't react.
Like I'm just gonna
Don't do anything. Like, just save it, let it happen on the inside. But yeah, I sat there for a minute and just like stared off into the distance.
It's been 14 years, dear. It's not a hard read.
I know. I just sat there like,
It's funny. Yeah. When you go from actively doing something to this, kind of tell something's up. That's good though. That wasn't bad. That was. I like the first one better. I wasn't able to. I don't think I really predicted anything in the first one.
I think,
I think the second one I predicted a lot of stuff.
That was definitely what made it harder for me going into this, was like, I knew that was, because I had that same feeling reading it, that like, just because I kind of already saw the tone of the book, I guess, and like had a feel for the characters and like.
So wait, hold on, back up. Who raped and killed the girl in the book?
It's not solved in the book.
I'm telling you, it's Philip.
It's not solved in like, literally the last that we hear about it was that phone call from Corinne saying that they were going to look into the ex-boyfriends. It does not come up again.
Hopefully it does in the third one, because what I'm guessing is that, first of all, I don't know what happened to his family. That's first of all, right?
Jeremy's family?
No, Phillips.
Oh, Phillips' family?
They just disappeared. There's family pictures all over the place in the house.
Yeah.
But you never say anything about the family being there. That's one.
Well, him and his wife split up recently.
Yeah, but where is she?
So it's assumed that she left with their son. I mean, that's what I assumed.
Okay. And then I'm assuming that he started a relationship up with this other girl and raped and killed her. That's my guess. Because everything leading up to when he actually showed, I mean, there was like hints, but the biggest thing is when he just so easily did the solar panel pitch. This isn't your fucking first time bullshitting, right? And then he knew to go into the door, close it, and where'd the fucking syringe come from? That didn't come from Jeremy. You were holding that. He's a professional at this. So, yeah. He is absolutely a serial killer, for sure. And I think he killed that girl, plus more.
Maybe there's some details I left out.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Maybe you have to read the book.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You gotta leave it open for the readers.
Maybe there's some secrets that you might need
That's
to
good that you
read.
leave it open, though. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, it really was a very good book, and it was very, very detailed. Like, even the parts where, like, I mean, I feel like they were still pretty graphic, like in the explanation of, this stuff that happened. More.
In this one?
More.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I toned it down for how graphic it was.
Oh,
and
wow.
Like
okay.
Paraphrased the details.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you're into that,
yeah, definitely go check it out.
check it out. Seriously.
And buy the book.
It's a good book.
Yeah.
Buy it, check it out from your library, whichever. I believe
Support the
that
artist.
they get I believe that they get some type of revenue from like library checkouts and stuff like that. I mean, the libraries have to buy the book. You can tell
anyway, though that it's a hot book and it's a good book because like you got the last copy.
Yeah, and it was right at the front of the store.
This was at the front of the store.
Yeah.
Like this is a legit.
Yeah,
author.
like I forgot
book.
to make a note of what the sign said on the top of the set. I know I read it and I was like,
oh, I don't know. I didn't see that.
I remember I read it and I was like, oh, I got to make sure I mention that. And like, I should have taken a picture of it.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember. There was some type of title on the stack, but it's a hot book. It's a new book. And it's a very good book.
Yeah.
So
I definitely check it out.
Go check it out and support Alaina with the book. Support hers and Ash's podcast.
Yes, check out the podcast. Morbid and what?
Crime Countdown, Scream.
Okay.
I think they might have some like partnership with the Podcast Network. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway,
that's very cool.
Either way, Alaina Urquhart, girl, you did the damn thing.
Yeah. Very good book.
Did it. I'm a fan, and I will absolutely be reading the next one.
Yeah.
Really,
it's probably
I
gonna
just
be
need
a while,
to know.
I would think.
Probably like a year.
What's
I'm
the
guessing.
gap in between 1 and 2?
I think.
Do you know?
One I believe was 2020. I have it right here actually. I think it was 2022. We said.
A year to write and publish.
Something like that. I think it was 2022 for the first one, and then The Butcher Game came out in 2024.
Oh, okay.
So
depending on the month, sounds like it's close to 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, hell, she probably could have even been writing it all in one, and then decided to like split it up.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Who knows? Maybe hopefully she's currently writing the third one, and like it's in
yeah.
the works
I mean, this is at the front of the store, and you got the last copy. It would make sense that she's writing the next one. See, that's why I need to
ride that high, girl. Keep churning them out.
Yep.
I'll keep buying them. I don't even care.
That's good.
At this point, I have all the hardcovers too, so I gotta just keep going with that.
Yeah, you might as well.
I just realized that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't buy a paperback now.
That's fair.
Darn.
It's a good book. It's definitely a good retelling.
I liked it a lot. I'm a fan. So that was another fun retelling. And that was episode 5 of Rants in the Rocks
Uh-huh.
in the books.
Are you going to take a break for books?
I might. Yeah, I think that
we gonna do like a
week we're
documentary?
gonna do a documentary.
Okay.
I haven't fully decided yet.
That
I
sounds good
kind
to
of
me.
want to do the Ocean Gate one.
That sounds pretty good, yeah. And we'll watch that independently.
I think, yeah.
And then come on the podcast and talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most recent documentaries that's out.
Yeah.
No book, but we are going to go
Rants on the
over
Rocks.
Ocean Gate, I think is what we're leaning towards.
Documentary.
The documentary.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sounds good.
So go have a gander at that documentary. I think it's the one that's on Netflix, right?
There's one on Netflix. I don't know how many. I don't know if it's like Fire Festival where there's like multiple.
Oh, shit.
It seems like there's multiple versions. I think there's one on Hulu and Netflix. Don't quote me on that. I'm just pretty sure.
Oh.
I think there's I've seen 2 Fire Festival
Yeah.
like stories.
Yeah.
I just don't remember what platforms they're on, but
Okay, well, hey, if you know of a good Ocean Gate documentary,
There you
either
go.
on
Yeah.
Netflix or Hulu or whatever, if you watched it and it's a good one and you want
Yeah.
to hear somebody else yap about it, let him know.
there we go.
Comment. Send me a message. I don't care. But just be like,
Or
hey,
if there's a
this
better
one's a good
documentary,
one.
we should
Yeah,
try.
if there's
Let us know.
anything else that
in the
like you want to
comments.
hear me yap about, I love to do it.
Yeah.
So, all right, episode 5, Rants on the Rocks. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.